Hello, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Friends. I'm Meredith Porte, and I'm really looking forward to introducing you to someone today, that I actually had the good fortune of meeting, I want to say about 15 years ago at a museum. And what he was doing was very visionary, as he continues to do with his wife, Hi-Jin. They work together, they collaborate. David is an artist, a filmmaker, storyteller. What else? He actually was a designer at Apple, where he knew Steve Jobs many years ago, as I understand it. And I would say that he's just truly a visionary, and one that's really dedicated to creating a better world. And he does it through his art, through his installations. They both do. Through anything that he does, it's something really deep, profound, and I like to say doable, if people have the right mindset. So we're going to share a bit about his films and his installations. David, welcome. Welcome to Conversations with Friends.
Thank you, Meredith. Great to be here. Great to see you.
Yeah, we met. Yeah, it's good to see you. We've seen each other on Zoom, but not in person for many years. David, I mean, the exhibition that I met you at, I was doing a story for Art Street at WLRN at the time, my arts show, and I've never forgotten it, and it still affects me. And it had to do with materialism, and you had placed all your clothes, the two of you, I don't know, all your clothes, to show how many clothes a person has, like, and maybe is it necessary,
We
right?
actually,
Yeah.
well, we actually took everything in our house.
Oh,
It wasn't just clothing,
it
and
wasn't.
we put everything on our kitchen floor. One room at a time, and photographs. So here's from the bedroom, here's from the kitchen, here's from the bathroom, here's from the living room, and so on. So it was, I think, 16 plates, and I think we had a total count of 608 objects. And it was kind of a funny story because it came from a book we read called, I always forget the name. Oh, it's called Hooked,
Hooked,
and
hooked.
it's Hooked, and it was a Buddhist view of our relationship with things.
Hmm.
And it just happened that a friend of ours wrote the introduction. Who his name is Paul Hawken. He's a writer, and Paul wrote a little introduction about a friend of his who decided he was a very successful man in his business, and he decided when he retired he was going to become a full-time philanthropist, and he didn't want to be burdened with stuff. So he said, I'm going to narrow down the things I own to 500 things, and if somebody gives me a present, here, he gets rid of something else, and all the way down to the teaspoons. And we thought, wow, that's really interesting. How much is 500 things? We had no idea. I mean, if you look in your house, how many objects do you have? Do you have any idea?
A lot. I have a garage full, or it's, well, half of a garage now, because I was doing something with the other half. And I cannot even believe the stuff that I have in it. I don't even know how to start to, old
Yeah,
boxes of old events I've been involved with, of spiritual things, of old clothes. It's unbelievable how much a person can accumulate, isn't it?
yeah. And so we thought, well, let's count. So we literally, one room at a time, we photographed it, and we ended up having 600 or so objects, and then we made it into a museum piece. And it, I think when we saw you, we was at the Frost
Yeah, we were
in
doing a story,
Miami. And
and yeah,
yeah,
because I haven't forgotten. I haven't forgotten your story, that you did this. And I think of it whenever I go into my closet, and I think, oh, time to get rid of some stuff, right?
I think it's to create an awareness of, we sort of get entangled with our things
Yeah.
and forget about, living.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to be aware of it and not to be so you know, consumed by your consumption.
So caught
Um,
up, so caught up. And
yeah.
I mean, when you look at the state of the environment today, it's a big part of the problem, isn't it? Just too much stuff.
Well, yeah,
I mean,
yeah, and
using the environment,
Americans,
Earth.
yeah, yeah. I mean, Americans. I think the last thing I read, last numbers I read were Americans consume 40% of all natural resources in the world, and we're 3% of the population.
Mm,
So we're really good at it,
that's,
consuming.
I mean, yeah, that's a real thing to think about, of how much America uses over other countries, and not just uses it, but even uses a lot of things and just throws them away too. Just
Right.
get rid of it. I got a new model. I got a new this. I got a new this. And I'm not one that gets, because I'm not really into gadgets and all kinds of new cooking things or anything. I'm just like so in some ways, I'm simple in certain ways. Other ways I'm not. But now this is part of your new exhibition that's happening in Stockholm, right? Right now, or just about to
Yeah.
open.
Well, actually, it's not new. It's a retrospective. The piece that you saw in Miami is it's the same piece.
Mhm.
It's one of four. Um, so it's older work, but it still has a life, and it still carries I think, a strong message. So we're
And
just
what
we're
are
just
the other?
sharing.
We're going to see them too right now. I think we have some. Oh, here we have something.
So it's called Closer by the Minute.
Hmm.
No sense of time,
Hmm.
and it's really about a couple things. It's about the choices we make and the uh, impacts those choices have, or consequences, I should say. Um,
Hmm.
I mean, each one of these pieces explores those themes. And talk about time as well.
Hmm.
Our lives are, this long, whatever that is. Um, and sometimes we don't really have it. We're not conscious of that. It's like, we have a certain amount of time to be here, and what do we do with that time? Um, so it's closer by the minute. Um,
Hmm. And we
and it's
don't know.
and it's
We don't, do we? We have no. Nobody has any clue as to when that moment is really.
right.
Um.
And
Yeah.
it's funny, when I think about time, it's like when I don't know, enjoying myself doing something recreational like biking or swimming I don't think about time. It's like, oh, I rode for an hour and yeah, that was great. Didn't think about it. But then when uh, I thought about this the other day. I do exercises in the morning, and I do a thing called planks.
Yeah.
Well, it's a very, very simple exercise. You rest on your elbows, and you
Hmm.
extend your legs, and you it's a position you hold for 1 minute,
Hmm.
and it's the longest minute. It just feels like eternity.
Hmm.
So I use that as a comparison to, oh, we're sitting here talking and having a glass of wine or whatever. We don't think about the time. But when I'm doing my planks in the morning, it's like, oh, geez, how long that minute just feels like it's forever. So our perception of time changes, and like you said, we haven't seen each other in 15 years, in person,
Hmm.
but that's gone by like that. Well, how'd that happen? Yeah.
Well, I do
So,
feel like we've had some conversations over the years, and I just completely, resonate with the kinds of things you're doing, because those are things that I believe in, and that I'm working in different ways. And so were a lot of people at the meditation center, the Brahma Kumari Center, so we understand this idea of transformation through consciousness and through awareness,
right.
right? That's where
Right.
it all starts, and that we all can play a part, even if it's a tiny little part. An important part, you know. Yeah, so we have Life on Wheels. Maybe you could explain what these are, and this is all part of the exhibition, these topics, right?
Correct.
Who's counting?
Yeah. So Life on Wheels is about transportation and a sort of America's fixation on the automobile. And it started out as a artistic work it's a 4-channel piece that is shown on 4 screens in a room. And it depicts life as we know it in America with the automobile, our relationship with the automobile. Which that also evolved into a documentary film by the same title called Life on Wheels, which is available on Amazon Prime and a few other channels.
I saw it.
Um,
You told me about it a few months ago, so I did get to see it. And
yeah,
it's, again, really makes you think, you know, possibilities, right, of what could happen for the better for our
yeah,
society.
yeah, yeah. And in a way, America has been designed for the automobile. We live and breathe using cars every day,
Mm.
and people don't think about it very much. It's quite remarkable. And we've since moved to Barcelona um, by way of Stockholm, where we don't own a car. We never even
Woo!
drive. I haven't driven in 5 years,
Oh,
and it's
jealous.
a very
I like
different
that.
life.
God, I'd like to live like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's a very different lifestyle. And we come back here to visit, and it's like we have to do everything by car. So it's not to say America is not changing. It is. I think there are places where people are trying to, uh, cities are trying to evolve and move towards walkable communities, walkable, bikeable, safe communities. Um, but I think it has to change on a larger scale
Mm.
because it impacts our health.
Yeah.
For every minute you don't spend walking or biking or doing
Mhm.
something active versus sitting in a car, has an impact on your health if you do it, every day. Um, we have the largest rate of obesity in America,
Mm.
and all kinds of health related issues. But if people took the 2 to 3 hours that they spend in a car every day and put that towards physical exercise, I mean, it could be just walking or biking, or whatever, running.
Running. Yeah.
Um, I think we see a vast improvement in people's health.
I know myself that I am a walker. You know, I walk almost every day, but in the park right by my house. It's like a minute away from my
Right,
house. And I mean, I always did it, but I started doing it more, like trying every day. Maybe I miss a day. And I just feel better.
right.
I sleep better. I just feel more relaxed. And I also, meditate because I go to this, Brahma Kumari Center and everything. And that's, of course, really helpful. But the walking has made a big difference. And we're going to talk about your movie that's coming up after we see this. So I know
Okay.
the power of walking. It's actually pretty amazing, isn't it?
It is. It is, and it's good. It's good for your brain too. It's a place to think. Um,
Mm.
you talk about meditation. It's when I walk. It's a form of meditation.
It is walk. In fact, we talk about walking meditation. I've done walking meditations where you walk and you meditate at the same time with a group, which is kind of neat. So
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah, that's your new film that's about to come out.
yeah. It's
Um,
called Walk with Me, and yeah, it's a discussion about our transition from leaving California to moving to Stockholm,
Mm.
Um, and it's a funny story how that came about. It was it was it was kind of because a car crashed into our house.
Whoa.
Speaking of cars,
Oh.
and did about $250,000 damage to our house, and we couldn't live here for almost a year. So we said, well, I guess we'll go to Stockholm. We have he and his family is there, and we have a home in Stockholm. So we moved there and put our daughter in school. She was just entering kindergarten at the time. And then we were there for about a year. Our house was repaired. And we said, this is actually working. And then COVID hit and we couldn't go anywhere. And then we said, well, we like it here,
Huh.
and got used to that kind of life. And so that's how we sort of and that's what the film is about. It's about the transition from a driving life to a walking life.
Mm.
And I've invited a number of guests to appear in the film who are experts in health, urban planning, um, a number of folks. So
So how does this happen? Like, how do you, you say this to me and I'm like, wow, that's how I would like to live, where I don't even have to get in my car.
right.
But like, I was wondering how this is, an idea, and it probably is in places, probably more in Europe, like Barcelona or Stockholm. But would we be able to make this a reality in our country or anywhere? You know
Well,
what
I
I'm
mean,
saying?
it is. Yeah, it's starting to happen here in America. There are a number of small cities that are shifting
Mm,
away from cars and putting in walkable places. We're seeing. It's interesting. We're seeing um, a friend of mine who's an urban planner in Miami. They're doing a project right now in Buffalo, New York, and they're converting an old mall, which is a quite big
mm,
uh, landmass, into a new sort of small city,
mm, mm,
and it'll be completely walkable.
mm.
You know, and so you can walk to the grocery store, you can walk to the coffee shop, you can walk to the gym or whatever.
In the mall. It'll be in the mall.
No, no,
Or
no, they're tearing them
no,
all down.
oh, they're tearing them all down, and it'll be right there in the community. Beautiful. So,
They're creating multifamily housing, uh, denser housing. Because most of America is zoned for single family housing.
uh-huh.
So one house, two-car garage, and
Mm,
things are very spread out.
mhm.
So you need to create density to make things more walkable.
Like cities,
Um,
like New York City, people walk a lot more, I think, from
yeah,
what
yeah, yeah,
yeah, my daughter lived there I loved when she was in the city because I walked everywhere, unless I was too cold since I'm from Miami. But,
yeah.
I always felt good because I was walking all the time. There are cities like that now. In Miami, it's changing. You have more people, especially younger people, coming to the city of Miami, but it's still, it's still not what you're talking about. You're taking it to a new level, aren't you? I mean, of what
And,
could happen.
and also, I think also from an environmental point of view, the car contributes. I forget the number, but it's one of the largest CO2 contributors.
Mm,
Um, so I mean, we can't keep doing what we're doing
mm.
from an environmental point of view either. America needs to take a look at itself in that regard, and I think many cities are. It's starting to happen. There's a sort of new generation of thinking and planning that's occurring.
All it
So
takes is vision, doesn't it? I mean, and I introduced you as a visionary thinker, and I see you as one because you always look ahead to what could be in your
yeah,
exhibitions, in your films. I can't wait to see the new film. It isn't out yet, but Walk with Me. It has to do also with the relationships that you developed as a result of walking, you know?
That's right.
That's another important thing. We get in a car. Do we have any relationships with anybody? Unless,
Yeah.
someone taking the dog to the vet or they have a child and, with somebody in the car. But otherwise,
Yes,
no.
it was really funny you say that because just being here we just arrived back in California this week, and we were in the car and we saw like three or four people. We came to a stop sign and somebody else was like a neighbor was going, and we waved, but we couldn't say hi, and we couldn't, because everybody's in a car. Whereas, if you walk, I see you on the street, we have hey, let's go get a cup of coffee. Or, every day we go get a cup of coffee at the local coffee shop, and you get to know the person who serves you. And even though you may not, they may not be your best friend, you interact with them, and there's something, that happens for your.
Yeah. So, is your message or your aim, David and Hi-Jin, is to kind of shine a light on things that are possible that maybe aren't happening yet, or maybe they're at the beginning of happening, and to maybe show a different kind of society and make for a better world?
Well, yeah, sure. I think the real goal is to start the conversation.
Mm.
You know,
Mhm.
people will see this and go, "Oh, I hadn't thought about that." It was really funny. We had a friend over the other day who we were showing a little cut of the film, and she said, "Oh, I really should start thinking about my health a little bit more." So just that, to get people to think about.
Yeah, so change requires people thinking differently, doesn't it? In a new way.
It does, yeah, and it really is just making choices. Again, it comes back to, all right, I'm going to choose to. I want to live someplace where I can walk,
Mm-mm.
so I'm going to choose to move to that place. Um, and sometimes it's not a big commitment. Sometimes it is a huge commitment. Um, but the choices we make um, end up affecting the consequences that occur. So
Yeah.
it's that
So
simple.
you have to show, so people have to see. Like if I were watching a movie and I saw that there is a town like this somewhere, well, that might just stay in the back of my mind. But then maybe at some point I'm looking for a new place to live, I would remember it, right? Or if I saw
Right.
lots of people doing this, that's a big thing, isn't it? People tend to do what other people do. I'm not saying that's good. It
Right.
could be good if it's a good thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what is your feeling right now? I was at this conference, I told you, not a conference, a retreat called Call of the Time. We were hoping you could come, but next time we won't forget about you and Hi-Jin in the Catskill Mountains, where there were about 40 of us, something like that, people from all kinds of careers. It could be medicine, it could be science, it could be writing, film, thinking together. I mean, we meditated, we walked in the woods, and they weren't necessarily meditators or, they just all did different things, but they're all trying to do something. They're committed to something that can help the world. But one of the things that came out was for some people feeling like some of the environmental people involved in, environmentalism, helping the environment, was the feeling of, they work so hard and they're doing so much, they feel, not doing so much, a lot to create awareness, but they feel like, well, what has happened? It seems like the world is getting worse. And I think what came out of this weekend was you can't think like that. You have to just keep going and keep
Yeah.
your vision. If not, you're not. Things will just fall apart or stay the same. I'm just wondering, what do you think about that when you do these things that create awareness for positive change?
Hmm. I don't know. I guess I don't really think about it in the sense of,
Yeah.
people will do what they're going to do.
Mhm.
but we're sort of committed to doing what we do, which is trying to stimulate ideas. And we're not trying to tell anybody what to do, but
Mhm.
we're saying, well, here's an idea. What do you think? And really, it's about starting the conversation.
Beautiful.
And I think
That,
that's as far as I go. Um,
well, that's
you know, I,
far, pretty far, you know.
yeah.
That's
I mean, I can't,
awareness.
I can't, I can't come to you. I can't come to you and say, Meredith, I think it's time for you to move and go to XYZ city, and you'd be like, no, I don't want to do that. You know, not in the cards.
Yeah.
But I might suggest, hey, there are other options for you, and you might
Mhm.
say, oh, I hadn't thought about that, and then you start thinking about, oh, how could I do things differently? You know,
Well, it's like when the student is ready, the teacher appears,
right?
right?
Yeah,
Suddenly
it's true.
there's a way, you know. I mean, I'm thinking about Miami and I'm thinking about a lot younger people. And many of my friends tell me with younger children, not young, but they're maybe out of college, they're working, that in certain parts of Miami now they don't have cars. Like you're saying, they take Uber if they need to get somewhere. Now, in my time,
Right.
wouldn't have even thought like that because everything is so, but they're moving into little communities they weren't really built for that. And they don't have cars. They just say, okay, they'll Uber if they want to go, leave the little area that they're in. And so I think maybe people are doing this little by little and getting more used to
Yeah.
not even a car or, yeah. Change just kind of sometimes happens organically, doesn't it? Too.
Yeah. It was fun. It was funny. I was on the plane coming here. We flew Stockholm, Copenhagen to San Francisco, and I'm sitting next to a guy who is from Copenhagen,
Hmm.
and I just kind of thought he's probably a cyclist. He probably rides the bike every day. And he's like, no, he says, I can't stand bikes. I'm like, really? You're from Copenhagen? He said, well, I live outside the city and I drive everywhere. So
Yeah.
even in a place where, you know, I don't know what the percentage of population is, but that ride bikes everywhere, even on the outskirts of the city, there are still people that, you know, have fixed ideas and that's how it's going to be and that's it. And, you know, it's so change is slow.
Yeah,
You
it
know?
is slow, but once it happens, something happens. I mean, I'm just thinking of the change in the way people eat. People that I know that,
Right.
you know, the Brahma Kumaris are vegetarians, many of them are vegans. It's a mix. When I started and I became a vegetarian over 30 years ago, I didn't know any vegetarians, I had actually tried it earlier when I lived out west, but I didn't know anybody, and people thought I was weird, and I just stuck to it because I believed in it. But now, I mean, I see everywhere you go, there's a vegan cafe. You can walk down the street or
Yeah.
drive down the wherever, and it's everywhere now. Things like that have changed. People wanting pure food, pure water, pure this, pure that. Right? We are in a different time of higher. Would you say more consciousness in that sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Gonna ask, so how do you I'm gonna ask one more question. How do you decide on the kind of work on the next project? You have so many projects. You know, uh, what is it? You get touched, like some touching, like a touching, or some kind of something goes on inside, you go, well, let's do that, or how does that work? You're in
Yeah,
museum
I mean,
the world, you're in a lot of, you do so much. You have films coming out, and then you have won awards, and you're
yeah, I
very
think I think
prolific.
things come up either, things that we're in conversation about, and we say, oh, well, this would be an interesting thing to talk about in a film or in a piece of art. Um, or sometimes we get approached by a museum, like we just recently we've been in conversations with a museum in Barcelona, And so we've decided to do a new piece. We don't know what it's called yet. Well, we do know what it's called. It's called Fire.
Mm. Mm.
And it's a very simple premise of if your house was on fire and the fireman came in and said, okay, your family is safe, your pets are safe, you have 1 minute left to get out of your house, grab whatever it is you want to grab. What would those be? What items would those, what would you go and grab? So let me ask you that. What would it be?
I had 1 minute to get out of the house.
Yeah,
I would say probably my ID, the driver's license, something that people would know, be able to know who I am if I needed to get somewhere, you know,
right.
and a credit card probably just, so I'd have some money
Yeah,
I mean, that's probably everything else probably you can buy or, replace, right? But those are harder.
yeah, right.
Maybe some of my little notebooks that I like to write my spiritual notes in. But I don't know about that. I'm joking. I don't know. That I think I could, I could not replace them, but start all over again with those. Yeah. What
Yeah.
about you? So,
I mean, there really isn't anything that
yeah.
is that important. I mean, it's interesting because this is something we discovered, and we've been asking people this,
Mhm.
and it really has to do with how connected are you in the sort of digital world.
Mhm.
So if all of your photographs are in the cloud and most of your important documents in your files are in the cloud, you don't need to grab computers or, I might grab my phone and my passport.
Yeah, phone. I
Um,
forgot about that. Yeah, phone definitely. I
you
would.
know,
Yeah.
because not that, I mean, all the stuff on my phone is in the cloud too, but it's just
Mhm.
for convenience. But then you have people that aren't connected to the digital sphere,
Mhm.
and they've got photographs, 50 years of photographs, or
Mhm.
things that aren't digitized. So they have very different answers.
Sure. Yeah. So I guess
And
it
then
depends
people,
on awareness or I mean, what it is that you value at that moment in your life, right? Yeah.
right, exactly, yeah.
Well,
So, and yeah. Anyway, so
interesting.
I don't know if I answered your, I don't know if I answered your question, but things just pop up, and or sometimes they're very deliberate. We say, okay, I, I'll give you another example. So we have been trying to well, the house we're in right now took us 9 years to get an approval from the California Coastal Commission.
Mm,
And I know you don't have these kind of regulatory bodies in Miami or
no,
in
not like that.
Florida.
No. 9 years to
But
to live in it?
not 9 years to get a permit
Yeah. Oh,
to build it. And
amazing.
now we're trying to build what's called an ADU, which is auxiliary dwelling unit, they call it, which is like a granny flat, or a small building that you can have your in-laws or
Oh, yeah.
parents or maybe kids, because
Yeah,
housing is really expensive here,
must be.
and
Yeah.
it's a way to add housing. We're short 3 million houses in California right now.
Oh, 3 million. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they're looking for ways, and we're on year three of trying to get this permit for this little tiny building.
Mm,
So we said, this is really impossible. So we started a film called The Impossible House, and we've been working on that for about a year and a half now.
mm.
So that came out of our frustration. The film's not about necessarily us. It's about policy. It's about um, urban planning. It's about how things happen in California in relationship to housing.
Interesting. You know, I'm wondering, just everything to me is awareness. The more people become aware of doing things that can help, you know, that can be, that can create some kind of positive, powerful change. Maybe the more aware we are, the more effective we
Yeah.
can be.
Yeah. And also, I think in this case, it has to do with having a voice in your community.
Yeah.
You know, how do you make change?
Mm.
And it's not as complicated as it seems. You just need to show up at City Hall and say, I don't like this and I want it to change. And if you get enough people that say that, you know, you're likely to see that change happen. But
Very interesting point that you're making. And maybe that's the problem with our society today, because we don't have many of those people anymore. People feel that they can't accomplish anything, that their voice won't be heard. And what you're saying is your voice can be heard, you know, if you
it
make the
can.
effort.
And it's really interesting because I think a lot more younger people are starting to show up at City Hall.
Mm, mm.
Uh, and there's a group here in California. It's called California YIMBY, which is yes in my backyard, versus you've heard the expression NIMBYs, no in my backyard.
Right.
These are the people that are against everything.
Yeah.
And then there's a very strong coalition of folks that have gotten together. They call themselves YIMBYs.
I love it.
Yes in my backyard. And they're making change, radical
Mm.
change, at a high level, at policy level. So it's possible.
I know we got to go, but I maybe I just want to close and thank you so much. I mean, because what I'm thinking of is, again, just show up, you know, when you believe in something and you want to do it. And others will
Yeah.
come with you, others will follow. Not everybody, but there will be people. I remember I was wanting to do a film when I worked at WLRN, and I remember they asked, well, who would like to direct it? Is anybody? And I didn't know if anyone was interested in it. And it was actually about Holocaust education through two authors, two teachers that wrote a whole book about the values learned from the Holocaust, that people learned through what they went through in this book. So it was about really kind of values and love and compassion and all of that. Nobody seemed to was that interested. And then all of a sudden, one guy, you know, he said, I want to help, you know. And that was the start of that. It was one of my favorite, you know, documentaries that I ever did. And, you know, I just never forget that in my stomach going, I don't think anybody is interested in this. They're not in, you know, and then one person said, yes, I'll do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's all it takes. One person, right? Another person. And I feel that's what
Yep.
the two of you do. You keep going and you keep creating all kinds of wonderful projects. I would love to just follow you around one day, the two of you, and see how you come up with all these great ideas and important ideas for society. Thank you.
Well,
Come to Miami.
thank you.
Definitely. Come to Miami soon.
Okay.
We can do something, right? Yeah.
We'd love to do. We love Miami, so it'd be fun to come.
Yeah, definitely. So take care and thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
From a land of ancient wisdom comes a voice for a modern generation, a voice of calm in a world of chaos, a voice of clarity in a world of confusion, a voice of kindness in a world of cruelty.
Are we ready? Are we ready to create a peaceful world?
B.K. Shivani has already spoken to the hearts and captured the imagination of millions of people in her native India and across the world.
Every moment, if we keep checking our mind, who will do all the work that we're supposed to do?
Now she is bringing her unique blend of lighthearted humor and profound spiritual understanding to the U.S., the Caribbean, and Panama.
You don't start walking a marathon the first day. It will start with
BK Shivani has a message of hope that new possibilities for a brighter future are not just a distant dream, but are fast becoming our reality.
how should I healed myself when someone says something to me which is not right? Because no one else knows me better than me. So we actually need only one person to be nice to us. Myself. Your vibrations can heal people. When we change, the world changes.
You can see BK Shivani on September 7th in Oklahoma City, September 8th in Dallas, September 10th in Charlotte, September 11th in Raleigh, September 12th in Pittsburgh, September 13th through 16th in Atlanta, September 18th in Guyana, September 19th in Trinidad, September 21st in Miami, and September 22nd in Panama. Tickets are free for all these events, but registration is required. To reserve your seats, just visit the website, or you can scan the QR code on the screen.